Are you ready to launch your podcast? It's time for Podcast Now with Restream, the live show that helps you plan, produce, and launch your podcast with the power of Restream. Here's your host, Ian Anderson Gray.
Well, hello, welcome to Podcast Now with Restream. This is the show that helps you launch your podcast from your live show with confidence, powered by Restream, of course. And today, as always, I'm using Restream Studio, which allows you to bring in guests, highlight comments on the screen. You can broadcast to a plethora of different destinations, which is what I'm doing today. Now, in today's show, we're talking about how to sound awesome on your live streams and podcasts. And I've got an amazing special guest, Samantha Boffin, on the show. We're going to be talking about how you use your voice, how you can warm it up, and do lots of other cool things. Now, I have to say, at the moment, I think Sam is doing okay. He seems okay, but I'm actually melting at the moment because it's so hot. At the moment, there's a bit of a heat wave in the UK. It's kind of, I don't know, is it 29 degrees or something like that? Anyway, I'll cope, I'm sure. Let's have a look who we got in the house. We've got Melissa saying hello. Great to see you. We've also got Martin Buckland saying, well, hello. And who else have we got here? Somebody in a Facebook group who I can't see who you are, but I'm sure you're awesome. Let's sound awesome. Definitely. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Cool sounds right now. Thank you very much. So let me know, by the way, if you're watching in a group, who you are, so I can say hello to you. Awesome. Well, just to let you know, if you want to find out more about Restream, all you need to do is go to iag.me/Restream, and you can play with the free version, but you get a whole month free of the paid version. And the paid version lets you do loads of other cool things, like, for example, I don't know, you can go live to Facebook groups and pages and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check out Restream at iag.me/Restream. Well, it is time, let's see if this tech is going to work, to bring in Samantha Boffin onto the show. I'm very excited about this because we're going to be talking about good audio and why it's absolutely vital for your live streams and even more so for your podcast. Well, Sam is an award-winning voice actor and director. As a voiceover, she specializes in TV promos, corporate narration, and audio drama, and runs courses and workshops in promo directing, audio drama, and voiceover acting. She's BBC trained, and with over 25 years of broadcast experience, she's devised and directed thousands of TV, radio, and cinema campaigns for major broadcasters, including the BBC, Sky, ITV, UKTV, Discovery, RTÉ, and Canal Plus. Oh my goodness, so much on that CV. Let's bring in Sam onto the show. How are you doing?
Yay! I'm fine.
We need a big cheer for you. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And we kind of got to know each other. Well, I think we've known of each other for a while, but we got to know each other a bit more recently because you came onto one of my courses and I just loved what you were doing. And I love your experience with voiceover stuff. And since this show is all about audio and podcasting, it seemed like you were the perfect person to bring onto the show. So
thank you.
Excited to have you on. Let's just see who we've got watching live. So let's see. This is this is one of my problems with my teleprompter. It is going to be too small. There, it's Tosan watching from Nigeria. Great to see you. And Jason saying looking forward to the audio tips, which is great.
You're good.
And Katie, it's Katie Simpson who's watching in the group. Great to see you. Awesome. And Hardboiled English with Teacher Paul is here back. Welcome back, by the way. It's great to see you last week. Awesome, from Canada. And Inside Lab PC Tech, hyped for this one. Wow, we've got a lot of people here watching. Great, awesome. Fab. Right. Well, I'd love to know, Sam. Are you coping okay with the heat? By the way, you're not melting like me.
No, out here in the office space, I'm absolutely fine. I have to confess that in my booth, I've got a sound booth, and in there it is roasting. So I was originally going to do it from inside there, and then I thought this is not going to be good at all. So I'm not. So I'm out here.
Yeah, well, that's yes. Well, yeah, I think sometimes you just have to make those choices. But I'm not going to complain about the weather. How did you get into all of this? You obviously, I mean, you're doing a lot of voiceover stuff now. You're training people, but you mentioned in your bio that you were BBC trained. You worked at the BBC. I'd love to ask you more about that. So some of the stuff that you seem to that you were doing at the BBC sounds really exciting. But how did you get into this? Can you give us like a bit of potted history?
Yeah, well, very, very briefly, yes, yeah. So my dad worked in TV for like all my life. So I grew up going to the studios all the time and meeting lots of really exciting people. And he loved his job. He was one of the few dads I knew who just absolutely adored his job. And I grew up wanting to be an actor. And that was the first thing I actually did. I did become an actor. And then there was one summer where I decided I was not going to be an actor anymore, because I suddenly realized that literally thousands of people were, going for a handful of jobs. And I thought, I don't know if I can actually cope with doing all that. So I thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I'll go into the other side of acting, and or the other side of the camera, or the other side of the stage. And I applied. I got offered 2 jobs in the same week. I was in my kind of mid-20s, probably early 20s, and I was offered a job at the BBC, and I was offered a job in a theatre as a theatre director, theatre assistant director, and the BBC paid double, so it was a no-brainer. So I took the BBC job, and I did voice work there. And then I was in what they call the broadcast presentation area, which was the department that dealt with all the live, very appropriately, all the live transmission of the programs. And so we also created how things looked on screen, and we did all the trailers and the promotions and all of that. So I was steeped in all that, and I spent about 27 years doing that. So a long time doing that. So
don't count the years. Don't count the years.
And I ended up in the kids area for about 10 years. So I was on the channels CBeebies and CBBC, which are the kind of preschool and the kids channels. And what I did, and I love voice work anyway, but those channels allowed me to work with puppets and animation and big talent and voiceovers, and they allowed me to sort of look at the whole wealth of it. So when I left there, I thought, I know, I'll go back into acting. So here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. So did you do anything on that? My kids used to love the In the Night Garden and the Ninky Nonk and the Pinky Ponk.
Yeah, we used to make all the promos for all of those. So we met all of the people and worked with all of the people who did the animation voices. So, and they would do special, promotions for us, which we would write and then film, and then and it was great fun. It was a really lovely area to work in, actually, kids TV.
Yeah, I bet that would be a lot of fun, because at the end of the day, us adults are basically just big kids, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Well, so inside the lab, PC Tech says, hello, Samantha. And we've got somebody in a Facebook group, I don't know who you are, saying, can you teach me to be a British voice actor? I think you might be able to, although it might be slightly difficult if you're not British. I was
going to say, that would be the only thing. If you're Japanese, that might be a problem, but...
Although you might be able to kind of learn how to speak with a British accent. I don't know.
Yes, you could. Although now the world is so small, and people can people can link up with people in so many different places that everybody's kind of going for the authentic accents now and the authentic voices.
True. That's true. It was kind of interesting, because we were watching. We're going through Faulty Towers, which is this like ancient 1975 thing with Basil Fawlty, John Cleese, and it's kind of really interesting because it's very old fashioned. And then we had, when you get the credits, you'll get somebody speaking to say what's happening next. Well, the person who was speaking was like like completely different. It was like regional accents and very like next on BBC it's going to be, and it just felt like really kind of weird in a way. But that's what we're going for now, which is great. It's actually embracing your accent, embracing who you are. You don't need to speak with the Queen's English.
Not at all. No,
you can
absolutely.
if you like. But
but it's much more. It's much more laid back, much realer. But much more authentic accents are much more in vogue now. And in fact, my accent is in this country anyway. In the UK, is slightly out of fashion. I do very well. I pick up a lot of voiceovers in the States and in Europe.
Oh, that's
interesting.
But
in fact, in this country, I do pick up work in this country, obviously, but I'm certainly not street. I've got a very specific sound. Yeah,
that's interesting. Well, I think we do need to embrace our accents and not apologize for them. It's Elisa Meredith who is making that comment, and she's saying, haha, it's not. Elisa is from the US, and you have a fabulous accent, Elisa, so just embrace your accent.
Yeah, totally. And
she was just joking, I'm sure. But Katie is saying, what's Katie saying? You have some different accents on your intro and outro, which is nice. And that's something that I feel quite strongly about too. I like to mix it up a little bit. So actually on my other show, I have it's an English accent and a Scottish accent actually. And I like to do all of that and have a bit of fun. Yeah. So when did you realize that you had a voice that could be used? I'm trying to think the right way to ask you this, but you wanted to do acting, but you obviously you've got an amazing voice. When did you realize that you could use that in the commercial world?
Well, I think because when I worked at the BBC, people often ask me, could I voice this or could I voice that? So, in a department full of people, they were coming to me quite frequently, even though it wasn't my core job. And so I got a lot of people asking me to do various things. And so I realized that my voice at that point, anyway, not now, but at that point, it was a really usable voice. But what I would say is that I think that now anybody, if they know how to use, it's how you use your voice that's the important thing, not necessarily how you sound, if that makes sense. It's not about your accent or your background or anything like that. All voices are potentially good voices if you can use your voice in the right way.
I love what you said there. I think that is so true. So, but I hear from a lot of people who don't like that accent. They don't like their voice. I didn't like my own voice. And I don't know whether you felt like this, but so often we don't get the opportunity to listen to our voices until we see a video. And then we think, oh no, I don't sound like that, do I? I sound awful. Oh my goodness. Have you ever suffered from that? And what would you say about that problem?
I think because my dad spent so many years recording me, I think I was really, really aware, really from quite a young age, how I sounded. But I mean, it's very true. We hear our voices. I'm hearing my voice in a way that I'm hearing it from inside my head, and it sounds better inside your head because you've got all this sort of gunky stuff inside your head that acts as sort of sound receptors, and so when you hear it outside, when you hear your recorded voice, often you're disappointed because it doesn't sound like you expected it to sound. And I think that's the problem, is that we need, in many ways, we need to get over ourselves. And also I've found that, my voice can be, some people can't stand my voice. And I've listened to so many different diverse voices on podcasts in particular, because everybody potentially can do that. And I love the range of different voices out there. There are soothing voices, there are brasher voices, there are upbeat ones, there are laid back ones. It's incredible, the range. And I kind of love them all, really.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, we'll get on to this later, but, presumably there's things that we can do with our voice. We can sound more mellow. We can put more excitement into it, and we can vary it like that as well. I can see a few comments, so let's bring some in. We've got Kevin watching. He's saying, I'm from Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada. you want to hear unique accents, you visit us. I would love to do that one day once we're allowed to travel. I think this. I don't know whether this is Elisa again. He says, I assume she's not talking to me about this.
Amazing.
So your voice has a similar quality to Julie Andrews' speaking voice. Lovely. Oh, it is Elisa. Yeah.
Lisa, yeah.
So I would. Yeah, that's great. And what's this from?
Yeah.
After 4 years of live streaming, we are very used to the sound of our voices, but we've tested our sound through audio equipment over the years.
Tweaked it. Yeah, they've tweaked it over the years for optimal sound. That's interesting. And I wouldn't know, but is that because you didn't like the sound in the first place, or is it because you realized you could enhance the sound by, I mean, obviously almost all pro sound is invariably treated in some way. So it's interesting as to whether you didn't like it in the first place, so you tweaked it, or whether you just kind of tweaked it over time because you thought it sounded better, sounded more professional. So
that's really interesting. Well, keep the comments coming. These are really, really great thoughts from everyone watching. And I can see we've got somebody watching from Germany. Is that Leon watching from Germany? Great to see you. So I want to ask this to you watching live, and then I'm going to ask this of Sam. What are your pet hates when it comes to voice delivery? So if you watch a live show or listen to a podcast, is there something that you find frustrating with the way people use their voices? Are they sniffing a lot? Are they kind of banging the microphone? Don't do that. That kind of thing. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know from you. But I'm going to ask this of you, Sam, because I'm sure you've had a lot of experience listening to other podcasts and live shows and dealing with actors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have, I think. And I think probably, actually, funny enough, this time of year, sniffing and hay fever is a really big problem, actually, because it's almost a wet sniff as well. And once you, as a listener, tune into something, then it becomes a problem. So like ums and ers don't particularly bother me unless I've tuned into somebody's, and then you hear it every time, and then it can become an issue. But I suppose it's less about the quality of the voice, and more about if their sound isn't particularly good anyway, if their technical sound isn't very good and you're straining to hear all the time, that can be quite off-putting. But I suppose really it's to do with how they use their voice, how they invite you in as a listener. And I think people don't use the mic enough, actually, because most people have got a mic. I've got a sort of fixed mic here, and it, depending on whether you're leaning into it or whether you're kind of back away from it, can have a very, very different effect on how your audience hears you. And the other thing is actually being relentless. Occasionally, being able to pause and let what you're saying sink in can be really good. But I think people worry and just kind of go whoosh and don't stop. So I think those things.
Yes, I think you're definitely right with the fact that a lot of people don't embrace the silence and don't pause. And I think I'm guilty of this sometimes, because we're particularly on a live, we're wanting to get people, we're wanting to remain interested. It doesn't help that we've got that live viewer count on the top left of your screen, and then you see it goes down by one or two. You think, oh my goodness, I've got to keep people going. I wonder if anyone feels like that sometimes. But I think you're right. Sometimes just leaning into the microphone and pausing, and I think we need to be more mindful of those kind of things.
Yeah.
How about if people have like a dry throat and you can hear that?
It's the stickiness in the voice that actually that's why I drink all the time, because actually just that, it makes a massive difference. And it's incredible how much hydration you need habitually. If you are broadcasting, doing anything like this, talking on camera, but particularly talking on mic, you need to be drinking, you need to be aware of it almost all the time, and keep your hydration levels topped up, because it can take hours to rehydrate you so that your voice doesn't sound sticky. You must know that as a singer. It must happen all the time, because also when you're nervous, of course, all your saliva goes.
Yeah.
and so the more you can keep hydrated, the better.
Definitely. I agree with you there. We have, so let's have a look. We've got Louise from Belfast. Hope you're doing well. What's this? Let's have a look at this. So this is from Kevin. I've never loved, I assume that means, the sound of my own voice, but I do host a local talk show on TV and I do stream live online as well. I'm told that I have the voice for it, but I just don't hear it. That's an interesting one. Have you come across this kind of thing? I've been there. I never liked the sound of my own voice, and I think I do now. I think it's taken me time. I went from really hating my voice to putting up with it to, oh yeah, it's all right actually. Do you think it's a journey, and what tips would you have for us?
I do. I think you need to embrace your voice, because actually, if you've got a beautiful voice, often actually, if you lean into that, then that can be actually quite off-putting, because to be honest, people are less interested in how you sound and far more interested in what you've got to say. And so if you're enthusiastic about something or moved in any way about something, then that's actually what people are buying into. Your manner, if you like, not actually how you sound. So I think that we get too hung up on the sound of it. I don't think anybody else cares, to be perfectly honest. Nobody's and in fact, if they're sitting there going, it's a lovely voice, the chances are they're not hearing what you're saying. So in actual fact, it can get in your own way. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. We can often be in the way. I mean, ultimately, it's about our audience, isn't it? We want to make a difference. It's not about me. It's not about Sam. It's about you watching. You're taking time out of your day. You could be, I don't know, doing something else much more exciting. But you come here, and we're very grateful for you to come here. But it's not about us. We're hoping to make a difference in your lives. So, don't get in the way.
Yeah, you can definitely make the most of the voice you have, and make it sound as good as it can. There are all sorts of different ways of approaching that. It could be simply the tech, it could be the acoustics, it could be it's a combination of a lot of things. But and the clarity of your voice, and I think one of the things I always do, and that's actually throwback from the theatre, is I always clean my teeth before I go live anywhere, before I do anything on mic.
Really?
Yeah, always clean my teeth.
It gives you that nice kind of clean, fresh feeling.
You feel better, and so you feel more confident, and also it just feels less. Yeah, you feel as though you've done everything you can to make yourself sound clean and clear, and weird.
Well, you heard it here first. It's top tip of the day is clean your teeth. I'm going to put that into my checklist that I have. I love that. So this is from Life I Wonder. Great to see you. I watched the live show on Sunday where the guy kept clearing his stuffy nose, to put it nicely. It was awful. I just wonder whether some people just aren't conscious of these things, and I think what would you suggest? It's always a good idea to watch back your lives and then try and learn from them, or do you think that's just too scary for people?
I think you should. I funny enough, I was talking, it's not about a live particularly. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who is a stand-up comic. Nothing more scary than being a stand-up comic, if in my humble opinion. I don't think I could do it. And she used to, when she was first starting out, she would record every single show that she did, and she would listen to it back and see where the audience reacted, see where they laughed, see if the jokes were landing in the right way. And she always came off thinking, oh, it was awful, always. And then she'd listen to it back and think, oh, actually, that bit worked there. I'll keep that bit in. And she was able to, and I think that if you genuinely want to improve and get better, then actually listening to stuff. I've never let anything go out on a podcast without listening to it. And definitely double checking at the end that I've got everything's all right, which is time consuming, but I'd much rather that than have a big old mistake in the middle.
Well, that's true. Although, of course, with live video, it's live video. So
but it's different. That's why live video is great, because because you don't have to get so hung up on all that sort of stuff.
It is true. But one thing one thing you can do, which I think is, you reminded me of something, and I need to do this more often, is to watch back the video. But in one really cool feature in Restream, this is available in Restream Studio, and if you use third-party tools with Restream, but you can go into the analytics and you can see the number of people viewing and comments and things like that. So if you see it spiking up, you think, "Ooh, what did I do there? That was good." And if it starts to go down and down and down, you think, "Oh, what did I do there?" I mean, I wouldn't get too caught up because sometimes it could just be maybe there's something really cool on TV and they. Or maybe they have to walk the dog at that particular time. But I think you can still get some really interesting tips from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'd catch things like continually, wiping your nose and things like that. And because that is irritating. If the minute you hear that, the minute you tune into that, it's like, Yeah.
And I think sometimes the viewers are too nice. So I wonder, Kat, whether you probably didn't mention it to the guy, but you stop sniffing. But what I'd suggest that you do is get a good friend of yours who's going to tell you the truth to watch your live videos, and what can I do to improve it, and then hopefully they'll tell you that. We've got Melissa says shouting. Is this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because people have different energy levels, don't they? I mean, I'm being me. This is me, but I am putting more energy into this than if I was to meet you in a coffee shop. I wouldn't go, "Hi Sam, how you doing?" I probably wouldn't speak like that. But I'm leveling up a little bit more what I do, but I don't shout. What would you say to people who are kind of too energetic and almost shouting on their live videos? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, probably watching it back might well stop that. They might like it themselves. They might think that's their persona, so it might not be too bad. And you've got to put a bit of extra in, because otherwise it's very easy to sound dull, actually, and to sound quite bland and lacking in energy. So in fact, I would think more energy is probably. I'd rather have more energy than too little energy, because if you're a bit too laid back, it can be a bit of a snooze fest for everyone. You need to kind of,
Well, absolutely, and you can almost like make yourself fall asleep, I think, if you, because the camera, it sucks this energy out of you, I think.
It really does, actually. And it's a bit like if you're just doing mic work, if you're not doing a live show like this and you're just doing something with audio, try and get in the habit of smiling as well, because your voice, if you smile, your voice warms up. I mean, it warms up the whole of your voice. Whereas if you don't, on mic particularly, if it's just that and you haven't got any visuals, you can sound really miserable. It's that sort of funereal.
I think you're right. And I always kind of make a joke at this point about, well, unless your podcast is about funerals and undertakers, and there is a podcast about this, but even if it's about a topic like that, I still think it's a good idea to brighten your voice. Otherwise it's going to be,
it is in my mind. I've got a kind of, on a scale of 0 to 10, it can be full on 10. But even if I was doing a read for a hospice or a funeral home, I'd be thinking it needs to be about a 4 or a 5, because nobody wants to be miserable. You've got to give it a little bit of warmth.
Otherwise, come into the undertakers. We don't want that. So let's. What else have we got? So Kevin is saying, "I've already done this. No, I've done that. We've put that on, Kevin. So I can't. The problem I've got at the moment is I've got a new setup with a teleprompter, but I can't actually read the words on the screen. So I need to think about that for next time. Oh, pen. Oh, I like this from Louise. Pen tapping. Holding a pen and tapping it is really annoying.
It is. People don't know they're doing it, actually. It's just kind of like a nervous tick.
Well, it depends. Are you? So I'd love to know, if you're watching live, are you a fidgeter? So maybe you need some other kind of thing to fidget with, but not on camera. It's
and not an audible one.
Yes,
try and put something silent that you can fidget with.
Definitely. Any tips to improve diction? Tips for practicing? So that's great. That's a great. Thank you for that, because that's my next question, really. what are your tips on how we can get better and how we can generally sound awesome? So it could be to do with diction, because some of us are mumblers, some of us stumble over words, and I think it depends on your accent, because some accents are just more difficult to understand, particularly if you have an international audience. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that there are definitely things you can do to make to give your voice, whatever your voice is like, more clarity. And I mean, I do. Tongue twisters are incredibly good for it, because they use all the different parts of your mouth. So depending on, and there are different tongue twisters that are good for different things that you do. So there are tongue twisters that are good for F sounds or B sounds or D sounds. But what the other thing is, try and read them through at a fairly measured pace and then quicken them up. And it doesn't matter that you don't know them. You can read them off the page. In fact, reading them off the page is absolutely fine, because it's all to do with, are you getting your mouth warmed up? And basically, the quicker you can say them, the more your mouth has to work to get itself around. And you look ridiculous, of course, but nobody will see that. That's fine. It doesn't matter.
I think you should record it for later, though, I think, so everyone can see it. Have you got any tongue twisters for us then that we can...
Well, I've got kind of quite I've probably got long ones, but actually I have got some here, weirdly. Yeah. Well, actually, one thing that is good is the one thing that I do before any broadcast at all is it's only, it takes 4 letters, in fact, and one of those is a repeat. So QE QR QE QR. If you really make the most of your, of course you look I can see I'm looking ridiculous, but QE QR QE QR QE QR QE QR. And if you just say that over and over again, it really warms your mouth up. Because
you're going that way with the Q E Q
R Q E Q R. Because all you're trying to do is warm up your mouth, to stretch your mouth. Because ordinarily, when we're just kind of talking, we don't have to. There are often no particularly complex words, and it doesn't really matter that much if we're a bit lazy with the way that we talk. But the minute that somebody's actually tuning into just the sound of you, you don't want to be kind of you want to have clarity in your voice, and you want them to be able to hear exactly what you're saying. And I do have a nice little one is the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. So that's quite a nice one.
I like that one. That's actually for in the UK they've got the grade exams in music, and the prep test for singing has got a little. You've got a little practice, and I think it is the tip of the tongue, the teeth, and the lips are working together, as you can see. It's that kind of thing. It's great. Yeah, it really gets the energy going. So I like that one.
Yeah. And I loved it when I was doing on the course with you, and because when you did the warm up bit, of course that was just like the sort of thing that I did every day. So I was like, I felt very at home during that bit. And you sing the song that I've sung before and do sing, which is Many Men, and Many Men is a great song to sing. And Many Women I usually follow it up with Many Women, and that's really difficult to say. And if for anybody that doesn't know what we're doing, what I'm talking about here, and I think I might sing it at a different tune from you.
Well, it's the Daddy's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball is the one that I.
Oh, is that yours? Oh, yes. You did Daddy's Like a Ping Pong Ball. Oh, well, that was that. I thought you did Many Men, Many Men, Many Men, Men. No,
it's Dad. But it's very simple. But I like that one. Yeah, but it's Daddy's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball. Daddy's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball. But Many Men, Many Men. That's very good for different things. So just play around, have some fun with some of these things.
Really is.
So I hope that helps. I'm sure it does. Kevin says, love the idea. Cleaning your teeth starts you off on a high note of confidence.
It does.
It's fantastic. I'll tell you what, I'm doing on hot days is having a shower. I'm gonna have to have a shower afterwards as well. But that's good. Restarting your body, and there's a whole. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute. Practicing my voice these last weeks, and having a lot less of a breathy voice I used to have, and that's Hassan. That's great. So vocal exercises. So we've talked about some tongue twister exercises. One exercise that I really like is just to stretch up to the ceiling and then stretch down and then just bend over slowly down to the floor and then go up again. And that just tends to reset your body. So there's some physical ones. But Sam, what have you got any other exercises for us that we could practice?
Well, I think the physical ones are really good, actually, because what we tend to forget is that we tend to concentrate on the voice and forget that actually the expression, which is what it's all about, is all to do with the whole body. So, I mean, like, I know I use my hands a lot, which is actually a big problem when I'm in the booth because I'm forever hitting the mic in the excitement. But using your hands, because people do that, it really makes the most of your voice, and it encourages you. If you just sort of stand there and really kind of just, didn't move, then your voice would feel quite colorless, actually. So it's voicing anything. That's why actually standing up is such a great thing, because actually the minute you stand up, you've got more energy, and you just use your whole body, and you can hear that in the voice. It makes such a difference.
Definitely agree with you. I think standing up makes a massive difference.
I record whole audiobooks standing up.
So I bet that you must you must feel absolutely exhausted at the end of the day doing that. But I love this from Hassan. I don't know whether you've ever done this. Reading Shakespeare sonnets seems also to help with my diction. So maybe that's something we should all be doing. Get some Shakespeare. I think that's certainly going to get our brains going. I love that. And what's this from Katie? I agree, Louise. And Kevin says, I'm ADHD with I can't even say that. See that word?
Misophonia.
Thank you for that. Makes for a difficult time to really listen to people, especially if there are any triggering sounds. And thank you for that, Kevin. And I think this is something you've got to think about when you're doing a live broadcast. If you've got lots of music and things in the background, that might be distracting. So I did have some music right at the start, but then I don't anymore, because I want people to concentrate and listen into what we're saying. Any thoughts on this? Because this can be a big issue for some people.
Yeah, no, it can. And I think I was looking at a discussion on a podcast community the other day, and people were talking about the fact that actually there's going to be more complexity in podcasts going forward, or people are, making them actually less about just the voice and more about, quite complex audio editing. And I'm, for that reason, funny enough, I'm a bit maybe about that, but there is something that's wonderfully simple about a voice and easy to listen to when it's just one or two voices without any background sound, without any extra bits and bobs, because it means that everything is coming through very clearly. I mean, the intro, that's fine, but once you're into that, my feeling is that for the majority of podcasts, it's better just to listen to the voice, because it depends what you're listening to podcasts for, of course. But there's a place for audio dramas, or there's a place for complexity. But I quite like the simplicity of a podcast, I must admit.
No, I agree with you, and I think it's just I just want to focus in on what people are saying and not get distracted by the music in the background. Because I don't know. I mean, maybe it's in being a musician, but if there's music playing, I will end up focusing on that. I find it very difficult to distinguish between it all. Katie Simpson says, let's hear some of Sam's fave tongue twisters. I think we've already done some of those. So thank you for that, Katie. I'm sure you got some more. But any vocal tips for us? In terms of like vocal health? I mean, you've mentioned water, drinking a lot of water. Should it be cold water, hot water? I know somebody who used to kind of chew raw garlic. I don't know quite why he did that, but
okay.
There's some weird ones out there.
There are.
Maybe it's just in the singing world, but any thoughts on any tips?
One that I remember, if you have got a kind of sticky mouth and you think, I'm not as hydrated as I want to be, green apples are brilliant for that. They literally, or I guess sort of apple juice, but certainly biting into a green apple will sort of cleanse your palate and give you a lot of clarity. When I'm really desperate, then I'll use a green apple. There was something else I was thinking as well. You were asking me about vocal health, were you?
Yes, yeah.
There was something, and I can't remember what it was now.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me,
as it always does. Yeah, I think we've talked about standing. It will give you that energy. And do you think, I think I found that certain foods before you spoke weren't a good thing. Yeah.
Things like avoiding. Tea and coffee dry your mouth, so they're not great. But actually, things like, it's all the good stuff: tea, coffee, chocolate, cheese, those sort of things. Dairy, not great for the vocal cords at all, and you can really hear it on mic. So, save that until after you've done your recording.
Yeah, you can go on a big binge afterwards. But I always found like chocolate or dairy just
it does
kind of clogs it
literally
all up.
Sticks to the vocal cords. Yeah,
it's not good. It's somebody's birthday. Whose birthday? It's Fulton's birthday.
Fulton.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, we're all very musical on this show. That's great. Hope you're having a great time. And Katie is singing teacher. That is the prep test singing one. Yes, that is true. That's great. So we've talked about warming up the voice. We've warmed up the body. One of the things you mentioned earlier is that it doesn't matter what our accent is, but one of the things that's really important is your delivery. And you've mentioned silences and things like that. But is there anything else in our voice? We talked about energy levels, but in terms of how we speak, anything else that we should be thinking about in terms of how we enunciate our voices or the tone quality and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that if you sort of imagine that it's pace and pitch, which are two slightly different things. So pace, I guess, is all about. So imagine you're a racing car, and you've got a variety of gears, and you can utilize all those gears. So you can start, in first gear, and I can go right up to 6, and all of those have a slightly different nuance and can interest people in a slightly different way. So pace is really interesting, and pitch is more like an orchestra. You can use different pitches, different sounds in your voice to create excitement and interest, and use together pace and pitch. That can really make the most of the musicality in your voice, because it really is. It's a musical instrument, really, and I think that we don't use the range of it enough. And if you can kind of tap into that, then you can really, asking somebody to listen to something, well, even for 5 minutes, but certainly for 40 or 50 minutes, you don't want to just a kind of monotone. You want to have that sort of engagement. So using the proximity to the mic, using the musicality, the pitch of your voice, and using the pace and pause. These are all great things.
I think you're right. One thing though that I think some people find this easier than others. I think coming from a singing background, and I did a bit of acting as well, I found it relatively easy. But I've worked with some clients who just find this really hard, because you're asking them to put a lot more energy into their delivery. They feel uncomfortable, and you're asking them to change the pitch in their voices. Yep. Well, they don't do that normally. Normally they just speak like this, but we know it's important and they know it's important, but how do they actually do it?
Okay. So what a good way of doing it, I think, would be, because people seem to come alive when they read stories to children, and we all at some point read stories to children, or at least we've had them read to us as a child, even if you're not at the level yet where you're reading stories to children. But if you pick up a kid's storybook and actually use that to practice your reading, because of the language that's in them, they automatically sort of push you to do a sort of more heightened, slightly artificial way of reading. But the beauty of that is it sort of trains your voice to to make more of the words. So reading kids' books is a great start.
Love that one. Yes, definitely. Read kids' stories. In fact,
Yeah.
I think I hosted a live video challenge a few years ago. And I think one of the challenges was getting people to read a kid's story, because it does, you automatically put more energy into it, because kids, they're not gonna stick around if you sound boring, are they?
No, absolutely.
So think about your audience like that. I think that's great. Katie agrees. Thank you, Katie, for that.
Though I did have an awful time. I went to read some stories at my kids' school, and when they were little and they were tiny, and there was a great story that I loved at home. It was a story called Mr. Gum. I doubt anybody.
Oh yes,
Mr. Gum.
I love Mr. Gum. Yes,
And
so
Mr.
funny.
Gum has got loads of different accents in it. And of course, I was relishing, doing all the accents. And I turned the page and noticed that I had a song to sing on this page in an Irish accent. And I was thinking to myself all the way through, do I stop the story here and just sort of say, and that's the end for today? And then I thought, no, I'll just sing it in an Irish accent. And they seem to be okay about it. But it was one of those. Really?
I wish I was there. I don't know whether you have this, but you've read stories. Like there was a story about a troll. I can't remember which one it was, and I gave the troll a Birmingham accent. I don't know why, because troll. He fell in the hole. And sorry if there's any Birmingham viewers here today.
I love the Birmingham accent. I absolutely
love the Birmingham
it.
accent. But I then listened. I think is it Julia Donaldson? What's her name?
Yeah.
Yes. And
one of her
was
books, yeah.
And then I listened. There's an audio version, and the troll has a Birmingham accent. It's just wonderful. But Mr. Gum is, sorry, we're sidetracking here, but Mr. Gum, I always gave him a Glaswegian accent. But then when I listened to it, the actual author read it, he has a Cockney accent.
Yeah,
and it's kind of weird when you and I suppose you get this if you're doing a lot of audiobooks, reading the audiobooks, that people read the stories and they have a particular idea of the accent and the sound, and then when you do something different to that, ooh,
yeah, I know it's a nightmare. Try reading the Harry Potter books out loud was a nightmare, because of course the films were long, out.
Yes,
and you trying to do an impression of Robbie Coltrane doing Hagrid never worked for me.
No, that's very true. Well, I always struggled reading it, because I always called Hermione Hermione.
Oh, Hermione, that's a. That's quite, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I didn't know any Hermiones. That's my excuse. But thank you. Katie is saying I've got to finish the show with a Mr. Gum duo. Maybe next time. I don't have any Mr. Gum with me. But any final tips for us? If we're wanting to, if you had 2 or 3 little tips to leave us with, to make our voices sound so much more engaging on a live show and a podcast, what would they be?
Yeah, I suppose you need to ground yourself before you get in there. So that's why actually standing up is brilliant, because you have got 2 feet placed very firmly on the ground. It's breath that you need to engage with, and that's not taking in a deep breath, because that's a misnomer. Your body will automatically take in the breath you need. But you can use breath in when you're practicing, to make sure you've strengthened your breathing, so that before you ever get on there and before you ever do your podcast, you've practiced making more of the breath that you can. Because I think most of us don't use our breath perhaps as well as it could. And I think the stronger you can make your voice, the better. I do a lot of sort of repetition. I repeat, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and see how many rounds I can do of Monday to Sunday. And it's amazing how quickly you build up the ability, the stamina, to be able to do more and more and more, or all the months of the year, say. And love your breath is what sort of grounds you and it supports everything that you're doing. You feel more confident with it. So I think smiling, grounding yourself, and breathing's always good.
It is good, but we don't tend to breathe that well, or forget to breathe. I mean, So I think that's all very important. Wonderful.
And also not
you.
worrying, actually. Sorry, just to say, but not worrying that you're because actually we all breathe, we all talk quite normally and breathe quite happily, in any other walk of life. So don't be too worried when you get on. Just carry on being yourself, really.
I think that's quite a good tip for live video in general. Just don't worry. Just be yourself. There we go. All these other complicated things we're talking about, and you can sum it up with that. But I hope you found this really helpful today. I certainly have. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing all these amazing things with us. We'll come back to you in a second, Sam. But I just one thing I wanted to mention earlier, and I forgot, was there's a new feature in Restream, which is amazing. I love Restream, but I also love another tool which I've mentioned on the show called Descript. And Descript is an audio. It's so many things, really. It's an audio and video editing tool. And one thing that I've described before is that you can download your videos and your audio from Restream once you've done your live show. Bung it into Descript. It will then transcribe it for you. You can then edit it. You can remove filler words and make it into a podcast and all those kind of things. But there's now a feature within Restream Studio for you to export once you've got the sound into Descript, you can edit it and make it the way you want it. You can make it as perfect as you like, and then you can export it into Restream using the Descript and Restream new feature, the integration. And so you can live stream a pre-recorded video that you've edited, but don't be too much of a perfectionist, otherwise you'll never get it done. But Descript is really, really cool in the way that you can edit it very, very easily. And so I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Awesome. Well, just before we finish, Sam, how can we find out more about you and stalk you on social media in a nice way?
Well, luckily, I'm blessed with a name that nobody else has got, so it's very easy to find me wherever you want to look. The Samantha Boffin is nobody else has got that name. Now, take that either way. But anyway, so my website is on the screen at the moment, and I've got a podcast called Talking Creative, which is all about. It's actually aimed at directors, really working with voiceovers, but it does a lot of there's a lot of discussion about how you can best use your voice, and as working with your voice, really. The other thing I did want to say, because often people ask me this, is what do you do if you lose your voice? Because when we're under pressure, particularly in the winter months, what can often happen is that you can lose your voice for whatever reason, and it's really simple. It's resting your voice, but not resting it totally. So rest, relax it, keep drinking. Hydration is everything. And honey and lemon works really well, but you don't really need to do much more than that. Rest it, but try and test out your voice every hour or so with a little gentle chatting, and soon your voice will come back. And because I think people worry about losing their voice.
Yes, it is a big problem. I found that if I don't drink enough, then I can lose my voice if I'm not hydrated enough. And presumably you would avoid using like cough medicine or things like that will take away the pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose if you're in real pain, then that's one thing. But honey and lemon is brilliant, and lots of water and just voice naps. Really, give your voice a little nap.
I like that. Voice naps. I think that's very good. Well, I'm definitely going to be thinking about that over the next few weeks, because the more you do, the more likely you are to lose your voice. So having lots of voice naps, I think, is a good idea. Just a couple of other comments before we finish. Connor is saying how to get more listeners on your radio station. And that's an interesting one. I think there's lots of kind of things we could talk about in terms of marketing and promotion and technical side of things. Anything from a voice point of view, you'd say?
Well, I mean, you can use it in your marketing. That's always a nice way of doing it. You can either record something, literally record an InVision, something of you chatting in Vision, or take a soundbite that's a really interesting soundbite and put it across. I mean, there are lots of apps that do, that help you do this sort of thing. a headliner and things like that, or just put it against something like Canva and make a little make a little audiogram basically, and using your voice to entice people in is a great way of doing it. It's what ads have been doing that since the advertising industry began.
That's very true. That's very true. Now, there was one other thing that I meant to ask you and I forgot, and that is, of course, we've talked today, and this was deliberate. We've talked today about how to use your voice. We've talked about kind of very analog ways, but of course, microphones. We've talked about microphones in the past, but how important are microphones? And you mentioned this before we went on air about you've got a different microphone in your booth to what you're using now. Why aren't you using your mega professional microphone for my? I could be offended, Sam. Why aren't you using that for this?
Because it's just too much. It's too high spec for in that it picks up absolutely everything. What it's doing is, for professional work, it's picking up all the color in my voice and giving the editor lots and lots of information to work with so that he can or she can make it sound even as good as it can be. Now, you don't need to do that with a podcast or because people are listening to it in a very different way. And actually, the more relaxed you can be about talking on mic, the better. A really good quality mic is fantastic, because the quality of your mic and the quality of the sound in your room, actually your room sound is one of the biggest things you can do to make you sound great. If you're recording in a cavernous room or a room with lots and lots of hard surfaces, that reflects your voice and it can sound really tinny and thin. Whereas put yourself in not the smallest room in the house, of course, would probably be the loo, but so not the smallest room in the house. But put yourself in a bedroom. Bedrooms are often full of stuff. This room here is full of stuff, and so it's a great room for me to do this kind of thing in, because there's so much stuff that's absorbing all of my voice. So it's if I was recording downstairs in my front room, it wouldn't sound as good. But a mic, but a good quality mic, and you've got a pop shield and everything on your mic. Again, that makes a big difference, because it allows your voice. Yeah. It makes your breath dissipate basically over the mic, so that you're not having those popping sounds, which can be quite intrusive. And the reason they're intrusive is because it reminds people that they're listening on a kind of a sort of false device, if you like. Whereas you want to listen to somebody in your ear who's just chatting to you. The minute you're reminded that they're on something technical, it kind of breaks the illusion almost.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. Well, thank you, Sam. We could talk so much more about this, but we are out of time. Really appreciate you coming onto the show. And thank you so much for watching today as well. It's been great to see you. Thank you so much for all the questions today. And we'll be with you next week. Next week, I'm very excited. Isabella Russell from Music Radio Creative is coming on the show. We're going to we're talking about audio branding, whatever that is. Perfect. So if you're interested in audio branding, that's what we're going to be talking about next week. And just another plug for Sam's website, samanthaboffin.co.uk. Do check out Sam and all that she's doing there. And if you want to know more information, do get in touch with Sam. Awesome.
I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is probably my place of choice as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Sam. Well, that is it for today. We're with you next week. And I just want to encourage you to launch your podcast, not last week, but now. And you can do it with Podcast Now from Restream. I'll see you soon. Toodaloo.